All right, good evening, friends. Stephen Benoon here with Israeli News Live, and I'm trying to see if I'm actually live or not. I don't even know. Yep, looks like we are. Let me just make sure the volume is off. Okay. Sister Marcia, God bless you. Thank you for joining tonight. May have some other friends that will be in as well. We're going to be looking at a variety of issues here on Israel, the Samson option, and really, there's two things I want to look at with you tonight, and that's going to be a little bit of the story of Samson. How that plays out with Israel, because granted, I bring this up mainly because Israel is constantly saying that they're waging this war against Amalek. Often the Palestinians are compared to the Philistines of 3,000 years ago, which actually the Philistines 3,000 years ago was ruling Israel. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't Israel ruling the Philistines. But are the modern day Palestinians actually Philistines of, that this 3,000 year ago period? And I'm actually going to use a Jewish source on that, and the answer is no. Or at least from the Jewish source, that answer is no. I do want to quickly bring up, though, over on Planet X News there, I want to share with you guys real quick this right here. There was a major CME eruption that happened on the sun, and this, I just want to quickly bring this out to you. It was so massive, and of course it is believed that they keep capturing Planet X in the background with this. I kind of think that this may be really true, and I know a lot of times they've talked about, this is orbiting the sun. No, I think what it is just coming up from behind the sun is what it is, coming up. Look how massive that was. And so I just wanted to share this with you real quick. I did an amazing job on this. Here it goes right here. You're going to see this thing as it blasts out. Hasn't blasted out yet. Here we go. Fixing to get it. And then they're going to show you. Give it 1 second. He'll show it to you here in a second. It's like one of the largest blasts ever recorded, if I'm not mistaken, but luckily it wasn't facing the earth. But they're going to do this capture of this planet that is coming up from behind the sun. I've noticed it changes. There it is right there. It's changing in size every time. Let me make it bigger so you can see that there. There it is right there. It obviously, and also to another thing I've noticed too, it's getting further away from the sun in distance. I think that's because of the trajectory of this planet that's coming there. But if it really is Planet X, maybe one of the reasons why the sun is acting so violently. So I just wanted to share that with you. I want to thank the Planet X crew there for putting that video together. And I'll drop that out real quick just so I don't have so much stuff up here. There is a lot of things. I'm going to also play here.
The city of Sderot, where I am right now, is right at the border with the Gaza Strip. The war is...
Archie, them reporting on this war that's continuing on in Gaza, because we want to kind of set the stage for some of the things that are going on here. And now look at here. This is Gaza. I mean, you're looking at the outskirts right there, and I mean, it's like practically everything is totally destroyed. There's more than one reason why Israel is laying waste to this city. There's multiple reasons. But even biblically, I have discovered that Israel, and I'm kind of going slow, guys. I'm really going slow because I really need to lay this out very clearly for you. Israel believes that the Messiah never came. And in order to have the Messiah come, there are certain prophetic events that they feel must happen, such as they believe the Gog of Magog war comes. They believe that, well, in this case here, that all the nations are going to come up against Israel. They believe that the democratic system of Israel has to be destroyed. I don't know if you guys remember, I did a video not too long ago, and I was talking about the right-wing government of Netanyahu and how it's becoming a theocracy. And I found these amazing videos, many of them in French, and it spoke about how that Israel, many of these rabbis were saying Israel would become no longer a democracy but a theocracy. It's kind of like if you go back in the days of Samson. I believe Samson was one of the last judges of Israel. I don't know if he was the last one, but very close to one of the last judges of Israel. And then Samuel the prophet ends up anointing Saul to be king over Israel. And then, of course, Saul fell, so he ends up anointing David to be king over Israel. And this is where Israel begins to have kings reigning. Now, God warned Israel never to have a king in the first place, because he already told Israel what would happen if they have a king. And everything, of course, that was prophesied about Israel having a king, because he said that God wanted to be their king, but the people were crying out they wanted to be like the other nations. They wanted to be led by a king. Well, they got some pretty bad ones in there. Polygamy really become bad. David, 500 wives? Solomon, 1,000? Are you serious? How nutcase is that, right? But anyway, they did it. But at any rate, though, when we go back to the times of Samson, Israel was dealing with the Philistines ruling over them. Now, I'm going to take you in the scripture in a little bit here, but the reason why I wanted to play this little clip here is because it really showed the devastation. Not to mention, what is it? I think it's over here. And again, I'm going to just silence it here because I want you to be able to capture some of the images here that'll show up on Al Jazeera here. Al Jazeera is probably one of the best ones covering this war, at least getting us the inside information, because Israel will not allow foreign journalists to go inside of Gaza. And understandably so, because they're just totally laying waste to everything. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring out, let's see here, it's supposed to get pretty close there. Oh gosh, let me see. In fact, I did listen to this lady a little bit. She's in Gaza there. She actually brought up some very, very important points. But one of the reasons why I wanted to show this here, Israel, what are the reasons why they're bombing Gaza the way they're doing is because, like in the case of Samson, when he wanted to avenge his 2 eyes, he just he pushed the pillars of the temple of Dagon, which Dagon is the fish god, and caused the collapse of it and killed everybody that was there. Didn't kill all the Philistines, but at the temple that were gathered there, 3,000 men and women, and there were children there too, by the way, because you got to remember the scripture says a lad, a young boy, was the one that was leading him around. And Samson wanted to avenge what the Philistines had done to him for his 2 eyes. Really, it was Delilah that did it to him. And that was because of his promiscuity with Delilah. Israel's no different. Israel has a lot of promiscuity that's going on with Delilah. Israel is really majorly involved, like Samson was, involved with the Palestinians. If you remember, his mother even said, or it was his mother or his father, one, said to him, is there not enough women amongst the daughters of Israel that you couldn't take a wife from our own people, that you have to go to the uncircumcised to get a wife? Oh no, he wasn't satisfied. Now the scripture says it was being done in order for him to be able to destroy the enemy. But in modern times, there's no reason for that. So then why is Israel exacting such horrendous atrocities on little children, on mothers, fathers, families? And the death toll is just absolutely astounding. There's more than one reason, and we're going to get into that. We're going to go into that a little bit. Let me just kind of pause this out here, close that out. I want to take you first here to this article here. This is on the JewishVirtualLibrary.org. So it's not a Gentile source. Jewish Virtual Library. Leading up to Israel's independence in 1948 was common for the international press to label Jews, not Arabs, living in the Mandate as Palestinians. According to Zachary Foster, the first use of the word Palestinian to describe Palestine's Arabic speakers was by Khalil Bayadas in 1898. Farid Georges Kassab, in Beirut-based Orthodox Christian, noted in the passing in a 1909 book, Palestine, Hellenism, and Clericalism, that the Orthodox Palestinian Ottomans call themselves Arabs and are in fact Arabs, despite describing the Arabic speakers of Palestine as Palestinians throughout the rest of the book. So they were actually described as Arabs, not Palestinians. According to Foster, graduates of the Russian Teacher Training Seminary were among the earliest to use the term, but it became more common when it began to be used in newspapers from 1908 to 1914. Notice that time period. The second Arabic newspaper to be published in Palestine was called Philistine. Foster argues that in June 1913, the concept of a Palestinian identity began forming in the media, prompting Ottoman parliamentarian and Muslim Jerusalemite Ruhi al-Khalidi to write an article titled "The Palestinian Race" for the paper Philistine, arguing that Zionists were attempting to create an exclusionary society in Palestine. You see, so the thing is, just quickly texting my wife, let her know that I'm actually live right now. So anyway, she's my sweetheart. So I'm glad to know. At least I know she's safely home. That's a good thing. So they were using the media already back in 1913 to create the Palestinian race. So the Arabic community, and it was a mix between Arabs, Christians, and Jews in the early 1900s that made up the land of Israel. And they were not called Palestinians. Now, I've done a lot of tracing of the history on this, but this clearly, I mean, this is the Jewish Virtual Library. I'll scroll back up here for you in this whole article. There you go, right there. Origins of the name of Palestine and Palestinian nationalism. So, whatever happened to the original Philistines? Who knows? I'm sure a lot of them, well, Samson did a pretty good job on killing a whole bunch of them off back in his day. But that's not the only way that this happens. Now, also, too, before I get into this, I'm going to play for you two other videos I wanted to play. I want to really thank, someone had posted in the comments about this particular this was a former congressman United States, there is a lot of writings that claim that he was murdered. But he has another voice that Israel wanted to label as an anti-Semite. And you're fixing to find out a little bit more about him here in just a moment here. And I looked this guy up, and when I did, I was amazed at his stand of how the government of the United States is controlled by the Jewish lobby. And this is why they wanted to label him an anti-Semite. Now, the reason why I need to play this for you is because this will explain better why the United States is so vehemently on Israel's side, and all these politicians are crying out that Israel has a right to defend itself. And yet many people in the world are like totally baffled by this, and telling you that this has gone beyond the right of self-defense. This is flat out wiping out an entire people. By the way, I'm kind of intentionally skipping one particular word there that I would gladly call here. But I'm very concerned about censorship and what could happen if I did. So I'm not calling it, but we will say wiping out an entire race of people. I have no problem with saying that. I want you to listen here. This is Sean Hannity and this senator. I forget the senator's name right offhand because he's new to me, but I want you to listen in to what was said in this interview here. Traficant, I guess is his last name. And this was on September 29th, 2009. And boy, they did everything they could to railroad this guy, get him out of office. They were successful. They finally ended up causing him to go to prison, a whole bunch of other things. But he tells it like it is in this interview. Listen in.
Congressman, you said something in an interview with our own Greta Van Susteren. You and I got into this on my radio show, and I am shocked, frankly disappointed, and these remarks sound like the conspiratorial, anti-Semitic remarks of people that we have heard from over the years. And what you said was, quote, talking about...
Real quick, did you notice it sounds conspiratorial and anti-Semitic? Remember that the Mossad agent made that comment. They would call the person that would do that, he's talking about Peter, a particular journalist that they were speaking about, Peter Makaki, Peter the cockroach. He said, what would we do? We would label him an anti-Semite. That way they could destroy him. Listen to what, and that's exactly what Sean Hannity is doing. Tell me he's not controlled by the Israeli lobby.
Israel and quote, Jewish people, they're controlling much of our foreign policy. They're influencing much of our domestic policy. What do you mean by that? Because that sounds to me like a bizarre conspiracy theory. Why would you say something like that when it's just, first of all, patently untrue?
Number one, I served in Congress for 17 years. I've seen members question bills and votes on how does Israel feel about this. I must have heard that every time there was a significant vote. Here's what I'm saying. I'm not an enemy of Israel. America supports Israel, and we should. They're a free nation. They're our friends amidst a cluster of dictators and monarchs. So certainly I support Israel. But Israel, through its lobby, has manifested so much power over the United States Congress that we're embroiled in wars that I don't believe we should be. Our kids are coming back in body bags. And in the long run, this Israeli lobby is going to hurt Israel. So as soon as you mention Israel, someone claims you're an anti-Semite. The truth of the matter is, I'm pro-American, Sean. And I don't like, hear me. Hear me. Listening. I don't like what's happening in America today.
All right, that's fair.
Our kids are coming back in body bags.
Wait a minute, but you're saying
we're bankrupt, completely broke.
But you're suggesting here that we're fighting wars on behalf of Israel. But you just mentioned the 9/11 attacks.
I think a lot of that has been influenced by Israel.
Hear me now, Congressman. We're not fighting the war. We didn't fight the war in Iraq. We're not fighting in Afghanistan for Israel. We're fighting because this country was attacked, because the 9/11 Commission report said there's a group of enemies against us that are fighting a war against us, and we're not at war with them. So we're fighting them because they killed 3,000 plus Americans. That's why we're fighting. It has nothing to do with Israel.
All right, let me respond to that. We're in a situation where the commission come out and they discuss the attack on America. There's no doubt about it. But our policies in the Mideast have been so one-sided and subjective. Without objectivity, we've created so many enemies, the only way they can strike back is we've imported the terrorists from those actions.
Wait a minute.
So if you question it, you're saying you're an anti-Semite.
No, that's not what you did. That's not what you said. You said they're controlling our foreign policy. They're controlling our domestic policy.
Yes, and I believe they are.
Hear me now.
I believe they control the Senate and the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
That's insane.
And they're controlling our foreign policy.
Congressman, that's conspiratorial nutjob stuff.
No,
listen, are we supposed to be friends with Syria? Are we supposed to be friends with Iran? Were we supposed to be friends with Saddam Hussein? Hezbollah, Hamas?
Hold it, Sean.
Well, you said we're not.
Sean,
we're only friends with Israel.
Ratings. I know you need ratings, but just hold it.
I have ratings.
I'm not saying we should be friends over there with anybody. I'm saying we should be objective. We have developed serious enemies from a one-sided policy. And yes, I believe Israel, through their lobby, has manifested total power of the Congress of the United States.
Power.
And my concern is the taxpayers and the citizens of the United States should control their government, not a foreign entity.
To suggest, as you're doing here tonight, that they control our Congress, that, quote, they are influencing, the sole control of influencing of our domestic policy, is an absurdity. It sounds like you are a kook.
Sean, I'm not suggesting it. I'm telling it. Yes, I believe they manifest a great power over America. Let me also say, in the last 4 years, there are 2 separate incidents of AIPAC spying on America. We even conducted a search warrant on AIPAC headquarters. Now, I don't like what's going on here. All I'm telling you is, I'm concerned about America. You and I might disagree. I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm not against Israel. And if Israel's attacked, I'm the first one to want to support them. But what I'm saying to you is this power that's being manifest on our Congress is going to backfire and is going to end up in the long run hurting Israel, because the American people are getting about fed up with this government.
One last shot at this. Will you back down from, quote, they are controlling much, meaning the Israelis, they are controlling much of our foreign policy. Will you back off that statement?
No, I don't.
All right, then we disagree. Congressman, thanks for being with us.
That is a man that wasn't afraid to stand for his conviction. And if you'll notice, though, they kept up the entire time. Trafficant was convicted in 2002 and expelled from the House. He's convicted on everything they could to make him look bad. They put it on there. I'm blown away by that. But yes, no, not only that, I'll go a step further. They also control the media. I'm sure he already knew that anyway. So very sad to know that this man passed away. And very much, I have not looked into that yet, but very much an untimely death. Let's look at one other one here. Mossad subcontracted killings to the Kahanist. Remember how my wife has brought out a lot about Mir Kahane, the ultra right-winger that hated Christians, wanted them all expelled out of Israel. And he was actually labeled a terrorist by his own government, the own Israeli government. And yet Ben-Gvir, who is in Netanyahu's coalition there over the police of Israel, handing out guns to all the people in the West Bank. He was very much a favorite of Kahane. Loved Kahane. Had his picture in his house, everything, etc. Look at what this is. Now, you're going to read the subtitles in this. Maybe I'll try to do this slowly and read it to you. Let's listen into what he says here.
רציתי בהתחלה להיכנס לשאלות.
First, wanted to discuss questions about issues never made public.
ברבים יום אחד
One day they will
יצטרכו
have
לכתוב
published a
עליהם
book
ספר
about
על
missions
השליחויות של אנשים מרכזיים
figures
בליגה
in the Jewish
להגנה
Defense
היהודית
League
בשם המוסד.
in the name of the
היו מקומות
Mossad.
שהמוסד לא יכל לעשות פעולות.
You know what? I realize you guys probably can't hear with. I can understand him, but let me make this a little bit quieter. I apologize. And it would recruit the JDL in all kinds of places in the world and to take actions against our enemies. Actions that were very successful. Actions that affected change. But I know that you requested not to get into it in the broadcast. But these kinds of things happen for years. Without a doubt, Garth says. There are one or two things that people need to understand. We are going to talk about the man who got the Knesset. To prevent Rabbi Kahane from continuing to run, it was Yitzhak Shamir. If people don't know, Yitzhak Shamir was the head of the Mossad in Europe and the coordinator and the things that were done in Europe. And Shamir with the Mossad was spectacular. But there were things that we could not carry out. That he could not carry out. Lots of dirty things. Marzo says, for political, they didn't want the state to do them. They preferred someone else to. And they knew that the JDL knew how to do good things. Karvat says we carried out a lot of things for the state of Israel abroad. There you go. So Israel carrying out a lot of things for the state abroad. Well, there's a lot of things that went on, and of course those little towers that we have. If I don't know what Traficant would know or say about that, but I would be curious to know his view on the 9/11 event, just out of curiosity. I know that the former Congresswoman, and I am going blank on some things tonight.
We're fighting.
There we go. I don't know what Traficant would have thought about that, but I do know that Cynthia McKinney, former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, did believe that, as they called it, the conspiracy theory, that the same people that were behind that event that happened in New York are the Israeli lobby. So, like I said, a lot of power there. That's why even when you're speaking about these things, you have to be so careful. You have to be careful what you say here, because you know that you could get whacked right off. They can just knock you off the internet and just be done with you at any moment, any given time there. So there's several things. I want to look a little bit at Samson. We're going to look a little bit about what he did there in light of the things that happened here recently and are still continuing to go on. And I also want to look at a little bit about the issue of Gog of Magog, specifically because there's some verbiage here in the Hebrew language on the Gog of Magog, and I believe that Israel is intentionally setting up the events from the very staging of Hamas to the retaliation method. I believe that Israel is retaliating on such a massive scale intentionally to cause all these Arabic nations, just like they quote Psalm 83 right now, right? They're trying to manufacture prophecy and bring it to pass. Literally, I think, especially when you look at the Gog of Magog war, when it says, I will turn you about and put hooks into your jaws. And I will bring you forth, and all your army, horses and horsemen, and all of them clothed most gorgeously, a great company with buckler and shield, and all of them handling swords. By the way, when he's talking about putting the hook in the jaw, Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, you realize that Gog is not what you think it is. It's symbolic. Because it's a multi-headed individual. You heard me right. Multi-headed individual, whether it represents a creature, a beast, whatever. I have a feeling that Revelation 17 is in agreement with the Gog of Magog of Ezekiel 38. Why do I say that? When you read this in Hebrew, Veshuvtecha, okay, and I will turn you about. Veshuvtecha, the word shuv right here, that's the word for turn around. Veshuvtecha, I will turn you about, and it is in a singular. The you is the chet sofit. That makes it a singular. And then he says, I will give you, venatati. I will give you. And again, that is God saying he is going to give, and he's going to give in a singular form. But he says here, chachaim. All right, that's the word for hooks right there. And those hooks are more than one hook. Just like you read in English, hooks. There you go, right there, hooks. That's plural. But this is where it gets really interesting. This is the word jaw. Right there. If I just highlight it in blue only. Bet lamed het yod. Bilachaya. That is jaw, singular. But the purple there that you see, right there in the middle, that purple that I just made dark blue but unhighlighted it, that pluralizes the word jaw to jaws. But then you have the singular pronoun of the chet sofit, which makes that Gog is an individual creature, person, whatever you want to call it, that's individualized, but it's pluralized. So the hooks and the jaws are plural. And if it's a plural jaw, that means it's got plural heads, but on one body. That brings everything into a completely different light. Vechutzeti, which he will go out. Otcha, again singular. Ve'et kol chilech, again singular, and then we go back into plurals again. Susim, horses, plural. Upashim, riders, plural. All right, now notice, not only is it plural, but it ends with a mem sofit. A mem sofit is plural, but it also represents a masculine plural. Whereas up here, everything that refers to Gog and the hook being put into his jaw, it's all singular. It's like a singular creature because of the chet sofit there, the pronoun. It's a personal pronoun added to the words there on every single word, referring back to that, I want to say almost like a creature. But when it comes to his jaw and when it comes to into the hooks, it's all in the plural. So whatever this thing is, I call it a thing in this case here, this Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, that rascal, even though he's a singular entity by that personal pronoun right there, he has more than one head. So we're going to look here in just a few minutes at Revelation, because notice, come hither, I will show unto you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman sits on the beast. But that beast has 7 heads, 10 horns. She's got a golden cup in her hand full of abominations, filthiness of her fornication. Upon her forehead was the name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. She is the mother of harlots. Because when Israel was down in Babylon, according to Ezra chapter 9 there, the priests took and they had relationships with all these different women, and also the men as well, a man with a woman and a woman with man. They had it. Let me just see if we can just kind of do this a little quick reminder. I know you, and I've actually found another one too. It was in, oh gosh, where was that? The Book of Kings, I believe, is where I found the other one at, right? Ezra, okay, chapter 9, just for memory. And they did the abominations with Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites, Ammonites, Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. They created all these people. And by the way, when the king, it came into his heart to want to send them back to their homeland, he sent all those different nations back to their homelands, or where they were, their nativity was. And all these people here were from what we would call the modern state of Israel today. They all went back too. So when some say, well, they put away their wives and they sent them back to their families. Well, their families all came to Israel. So yeah, the kids came anyway. And by the way, they didn't all do that. You go into the next chapter, there were several men that refused to put them away. Which, oddly enough, you look in the book of Judges, Samson does the same thing. He marries one of the daughters as well of the Philistines. He saw a woman of Timnah, of the daughters of the Philistines, and he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman of Timnah, of the daughters of the Philistines, and now therefore get her for me to wife. And they did it. Now, of course, now it does say, now at that time, the Philistines had ruled over Israel, but it goes here, knew not that it was of the Lord, for he sought an occasion against the Philistines. So you could argue that. But then what happened? He has the wedding, goes to marry her and everything. She pleased him. They set it all up. This is where we find out about the riddle he gives the men that come, the 30 men that come to the marriage feast and stuff. And his wife continues to press him, and really under a lot of pressure to reveal that secret that they had. And finally, on the seventh day, I find that interesting too. Seventh day, and yet we have a seven-headed beast. Interesting. She gives in and tells the riddle. Samson lost. He had to go pay his own vow, which he went and killed 30 men in order to pay it. Was very upset about it. And I want to read a little bit to you here about, on the seventh day that they said unto Samson's wife, entice thy husband, that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you called us hither to impoverish us? I mean, talking about a radical group of people. Tell us the riddle, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Now, Hamas is pretty radical, and they did some pretty radical things. By the way, they weren't the ones that burnt the house. That was proven that the Israelis burnt the house with the Hamas and the hostages, and over 100 Israelis were killed. That was on Israeli news, as I shared with you already. Israel is totally destroying buildings and collapsing them. Why? Because like in the case of Samson, when he pushed against those pillars to avenge his eyes, he killed everybody by collapsing the building upon them. That's what Israel is doing with the airstrikes. They are collapsing the buildings upon the Palestinians. Liking it, even though they're not saying it, but the mindset is like Samson. My question is, though, is if Samson did it to avenge his eyes, and Jesus did say about the Pharisees, he said, you're blind, naked, and don't know it. He said, if the blind lead the blind, they both fall in the ditch. Isn't that what he said? So is Israel trying to avenge their blindness on the Palestinians? But in this case here, they didn't put their eyes out. Israel chose a murderer, Barabbas, to be released 2,000 years ago rather than the Son of God. All because they held their law, the Talmudic law, higher than that of the Word of God. Had they believed the Word of God, had they believed Moses, as Jesus said, if you believe Moses, you'd believe me because he wrote of me. But they did not believe Moses, and neither did they believe Jesus. And as a result, they put the Son of God to death and chose a murdering Barabbas to be released. He was accused of murder in an insurrection against the state. And as a result, they released a murdering spirit instead. And then Rome comes in to destroy Israel in 70 AD. Jesus prophesied it was going to happen. By the way, this is another reason why Israel wants the Gog of Magog war. Do you remember, and let me see, maybe I can find this real quick while we're on here. This is where Netanyahu, he met with Schneerson, and Schneerson asked him, what was he doing to bring about that redemption? I think this is the video here. Let me just see. Much success. I haven't seen you in a long time. Blessing and success. A double portion of benediction. I came to ask you blessing and help, your blessing and help in everything, in all areas, both personal and political. Since we last met, many things have progressed. Many things have progressed, he says. What hasn't changed, however, is that Mashiach still hasn't come. So do something to hasten his coming. We're doing. Apparently, it's not enough. Since many hours have already passed today, he's still not here. But there are still a few hours left in the day. So try still for today. Yes, good tidings with joy and happiness. You know, Chassidim are careful to do everything with joy. Good tidings, much success. So do something to hasten his coming. That's what he says to him. Do something to hasten his coming. Well, Netanyahu is working on that right now. And they had to stage, because, see, it wasn't prophetic for Hamas to come in there and attack the Israelis and kill all these innocent Israelis. And by the way, those Israelis were innocent Israelis as well that were killed. They were murdered. You know, I find it interesting if you think about it, right? Let me show you a video here. Oh, by the way, this is Germany. The guy here, Dr. Eli David, says this is not 1938 Berlin. This is 2023 Berlin. Mr. Eli David, can I tell you something as well? Or Dr. Eli David. Yeah, it's Germany protesting against Israel. But if you ever stop for a moment, this is definitely not back during 1938. That is true. This is a nation that is slaughtering Palestinians wanting these types of protests, wanting to bring the nations against Israel to fulfill a Gog of Magog war. Even when they stage the event, right? We'll come back to Daniel McAdams' post here. Very interesting too. I apologize. I didn't warn anybody about this. I'm sorry, but I think this is important. So many families of, let me go back off of that for a moment. So many families, journalist families, have been killed. Now, they're putting it out there that they're targeted, but they have been killed as a result of Israeli airstrikes. If they're targeted, that could be. I don't know. But the children that are dying are just in the massive numbers. I want to play this clip right here for you as well. This clip here, Hamas releases footage of fighters at the Gaza border. I do want to warn you now, there could be images in here that are disturbing, so let me warn you of that before I start this. I don't remember. The main thing I'm wanting to show are the gates that are blown up and things like that. Let's look into this real quick here.
Allahu Akbar.
Here you have one of the walls. Look at the massiveness of this wall. It's taken out. The whole section of it is taken out. I've seen footages of where gates and stuff also were taken out. By the way, this guy here is carrying an RPG. That's the largest of the weapons that they had at their disposal was RPG. There are your guys going in by air. But the reason why I wanted to play this, now if you'll notice, he's speaking in English. Listen. Listen. Now he uses Arabic as well, but he says, how's your, and he says it twice, and then this Arabic word. Why does the guy speak English? You ever wonder about that? Why is he speaking English? That was Al Jazeera. We can drop Al Jazeera for now. By the way, this article I think is important as well. I'm going to come back, though, to the gate part here in just a moment. Mossad chief visited Doha, urged Qatar to continue Hamas financial aid. This was February 24th, 2020. Mossad chief Yossi Cohen visited Doha on February the 5th in order to ensure Qatar continues its financial aid policy to Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. Remember, I told you I got one of the intels that I have over in the Middle East there that told me Qatar was the complete financial backer, not Iran, but Qatar is for Hamas. And then we have this right here in Haaretz, speaking about the head of Mossad going to Doha for getting that continued support. The visit came to light in an interview former Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman gave Israel's Channel 12 News on Saturday, saying Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had sent Cohen and the Israeli military chief of the Southern Command, Herzl Halevi, to beg the Qataris to keep funneling money into Hamas. Both the Egyptians and the Qataris are angry with Hamas, and they were going to cut all ties with them. All of a sudden, I want to make sure you guys can really see this. Let me get it big enough. All of a sudden, Netanyahu shows up as Hamas advocate, pressuring Egypt and the Qataris to continue. With the financial support, said Lieberman, adding that Netanyahu's policy is tantamount to surrender to terrorism. No, they were plotting and planning. You have to understand, everything has been a plot and a plan. The Syrian unrest and war, remember what happened over in Syria? Remember what, this is one of the things that really hit headlines a lot back then, the People's Voice. Top ISIS leader is captured in Benghazi, exposed as Israeli Mossad agent. Yeah, there you go. There he is. That's him right there. It says here, the Israeli government has often referenced Daesh as a useful tool. Remember that statement there? And the guy's real name is Ephraim Benjamin, a known Mossad operative. Yeah, he was one of the head masterminds. He got captured. And he was exposed that he was an Israeli Mossad chief. Why was Israel working with ISIS in the first place? If you remember, this was the United States also behind this too, because what? Remember what Obama did? The good old Muslim Brotherhood boy that was running the presidency at the time. He left all our military assets, which you have to have codes to be able to operate one of our tanks. You don't just jump in the tank and drive off with it. It's not a Beamer that you just need the keys for. We left all that equipment behind for ISIS, along with some money. That's what Obama did. And then they have the audacity to say that Traficant is an anti-Semite because he was exposing Israel's control over American Congress and Senate. Imagine what that man could have found out if somebody would just let him to do a special investigation on what's going on, right? Imagine what could have been uncovered. Well, the reason why Israel was involved in Syria was to cause the displacement of the Muslim communities, and they made sure that the most radical ones of all, the ones that have already been terrorized and killed, families murdered and pillaged, they went on foot and flooded Western Europe. Do you know anything about, as the title of the video is, the Samson option? Israel's plan is to annihilate all those that were responsible for the bringing down of the Second Temple. The Romans, the Europeans. Not to mention to bring about a new world order, a theocracy in Israel, to bring about a head of the global new agenda, the one world government. Israel's going to be the head of that. And in order to pull this off, I'm hitting those sensitive words I shouldn't be saying. My apologies, YouTube. But for this globalist agenda that they have, they needed to displace all these Muslims and put them into Western Europe because they're going to topple Western Europe. Not to mention when all these, in fact, these protests are Muslim protests for the most part. I mean, yes, there's even Jewish people joining in. You got more Jewish people in America got more common sense about what's going on in Gaza than you do in Israel. You got Jewish people by the tens of thousands protesting, including the Haredi community. God bless their hearts. That's real Jews. That's Jewish people that care about humanity. And they're protesting what Israel's doing. I guess they're not fully controlled by the propaganda machine. But anyway, Israel controlled ISIS. They sent all these Arabs into Western Europe because they need a Gog of Magog war. But what people didn't realize is what I'm showing to you now was that, not with Ezra, but Ezekiel, that beast, that's actually, I don't know if it's a beast, a man or what, but I would assume it's a beast because Gog has got more than one head and he's got more than one hook going in every one of those jaws to drag him down to this battle. That's why I think it's Revelation 17 being played out. And the woman that's riding the beast has committed fornication with all the kings of the earth. That's obvious too. And she's riding that beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. She is the mystery Babylon, the great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And Samson, he goes down, literally goes down in one particular place here. We actually have where he goes down and he gets a prostitute. Right? Gets a prostitute. Let's see if this is where it's at. That's where he visited his wife. All right. But then he gets angry. He beats down 1,000 of them with the jawbone of an ass. And I know there's all kind of symbology we could look at that. Just like when he brought down the temple that they were in. It was the temple of Dagon, the fish god. Heathen worship, obviously. But Samson, here it is right here, and saw there a harlot and went in unto her. And the harlot is not Delilah, by the way. Samson was a judge of Israel. First he marries a girl. That didn't work out, not of his own people, but God was kind of trying to lead that in order to be able to bring down the Philistines. I don't think God was in the part about him going into the harlot that he goes into, which clearly is just like a revelation. Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Watch what happens, though, here. It was told the Gazites, which were the people of Gaza, Samson has come hither, and they compassed him and lay in wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all night, saying, Let be till morning light, then we will kill him. And Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, laid a hold of the doors of the gate of the city, and the 2 posts, and plucked them up, bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of the mountain that is before Hebron. Netanyahu, like Samson, opened the gate for Hamas to come in. Now in the story here, Samson, he's the one that picks him up and carries him up. It came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. Like I said, she wasn't the harlot, the different woman. He falls in love with her. He falls in love with all these Philistines. And there's been a courtship with Israel, with Hamas, the Philistines, in Gaza. So if there really are Philistines over there, I would certainly think Hamas is probably the ones that are really related. And what's interesting, that becomes Israel's downfall. Or in the case of Samson, becomes his downfall. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and said unto her, Entice him and see wherein his great strength lies. We know the story. They're going to pay her off 1,100 pieces of silver. That's a lot of money. And Delilah said to Samson, Tell me, I pray thee, where your great strength lies. She keeps working on him and working on him and working on him. He lies to her, lies to her, lies to her. But then he finally tells her what it is. He finally tells her that it's the 7 locks that are upon his head, that if they're shaved off, he'll become like any other man. I wonder if those 7 braids of hair have any correlation with what I was sharing with you of Gog of Magog. Just as a future type. When she pressed him daily with her words, and urged him that his soul was vexed unto death. And he told her all his heart, and said unto her, There hath not come a razor upon my head. For I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. Netanyahu shaved the head of Israel. so that Hamas had a weak place to come in. That resulted in the slaughter of over 1,400 Israelis. In the case of Samson, he's the only one that paid the price. When Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up this at once, he hath told me all his heart." Then the Lord of the Philistines came up unto her and brought the money in their hand. Just like the Mossad chief. Pay him off. And she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man and had the 7 locks of his head shaven off. And she began to afflict him. And strength went from him. And she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And he woke out of his sleep and said, "I will go out as other times and shake myself." But he knew not the Lord was departed from him. That could really be said of what we see today. And the Philistines laid hold on him and put out his eyes. And they brought him down to Gaza and bound him with fetters of brass. And he did grind in the prison house. You notice what it says there? Where was that prison house? That prison house was in Gaza. They call Gaza today the largest outdoor prison there is. Gaza's been in prison, not just recently, for some 75 years. When the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaven, the lords of the Philistines gathered them together to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon their god, to rejoice, for they said, "Our God hath delivered Samson our enemy into our hand." And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, "Our God hath delivered into our hand our enemy, and the destroyer of our country, who hath slain many of us." And it came to pass, when their hearts were merry, that they said, "Call for Samson, that he may make us sport." And they called for Samson out of the prison house, and made sport before them, and they set him between the pillars. And Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand, there it is right there, El Hana'ar, a little boy, "Suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house resteth, that I may lean upon them." Now the house was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines were there. And there were upon the roof about 3,000 men and women that beheld while Samson made sport. And Samson called unto the Lord and said, "O Lord, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee, only this once, O God, that I may be this once avenged of the Philistines from my 2 eyes." Israel truly is blind today. But they're taking their vengeance out on a people that did not commit the crime. They're taking it out on innocent people. Israel has no right to compare themselves to Samson. But one thing's for sure, they are burying people alive in the rubble. That's their way of killing them. Because they believe that they're biblically fulfilling prophecy. And in doing so, they are hoping that this will put the hook in the jaws of Gog of Magog and all his armies so that they will come against Israel. And if you ever notice with Ezra, the hook has to be put in the jaws, plural, because those heads represent the nations. And they're going to bring them up against Israel. So no doubt there will be a Gog of Magog battle. But Israel themselves are trying to manufacture that prophecy. A, by allowing Hamas to slaughter Israelis so that Israel could justify their attack on Gaza. They have controlled the American political system so well, with so much money, not just money. Do you know what else? Do you know what else? Well, you know what controls these politicians? One of the guys over in the Middle East that does intelligence that I spoke with recently, he was talking about even Palestinians that work for Mossad, that are spies embedded inside of Hamas. I asked him, I said, I guess they bribe them with money. He says, oh no. He said they make them do their work for them because they have something on them. I've been told about this about politicians for years. It's not just that politicians get bought off with money and they can make them obey to money, but they will also have some kind of dirt on that politician. Maybe that politician is sleeping with some other woman than his wife, and his wife doesn't know about it, and they've got video footage of that. They let him know. We'll make it public, so your wife can see. Maybe they got him on bribery. Maybe they got him on something else. As I was told, the Muslim community in Gaza, the biggest thing that can cause fear for them is if somebody in their family is involved with a man-and-man relationship and they have video footage of it. And then they tell the other guy, maybe it's the father, you infiltrate the organization and be our spy, or we will make public what your son is doing. The embarrassment of that, there is no money that can put a value to that. And that's how they get them trapped in becoming Mossad agents. And of course, he told me this is how they really know that Israel is so embedded in Hamas. They knew everything. They knew the attack was coming. They helped plan it. One lady I was listening to earlier, and I don't know if I even have it up, but she described in detail, how that Hamas had such detailed plans of their community, their kibbutz, their homes, where the dentist office was, how to get first aid equipment in the event of injuries, what to do, but their objective mainly was to take hostages, only shoot in the event that they're being shot at. They were mainly only looking for hostages, nothing else. I'm sure, though, Hamas just decided to have a field day while they were there because they couldn't believe they got in the country so easily. So I do see Revelation 17, especially looking at Ezekiel. She sits on that scarlet-colored beast, and she's drunken with the blood of the saints. By the way, that's something that hasn't happened yet. She's going to be drunk with the blood of the saints. That's part of the Gog of Magog war when they go to try to bring down, because you got to remember, Israel believes that they're going to take down Esau, Edom, and they consider Rome to be Edom. Never mind that probably Edom really is those in power in Israel. But anyway, their idea is to take down the Christians. They want to take down also the Catholic Church, and they're going to nuke. They're going to be the ones that start the nuclear wars. John marveled at this woman. And the angel says, I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. He cometh, he must continue a short space. The beast that was and is not, even as the eighth, and is of the seven, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as of yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. They shall make war with the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is the Lord of lords, King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith to me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. It's just a conjecture as I look at what's written here of the Gog of Magog, mainly because, like I said, this just blows me away. That it's hooks plural, and it says it in English, hooks plural, and jaws plural. It's in English already there for you. So what is it? Something for you to think about. I'm Stephen Benoon. I thank you for watching tonight. Also, I'd like to just remind you the website regarding my father-in-law, justiceforstefansuto.org. There will be a link in the description below if God lays on your heart to help us in this battle that we're going through there. It has been a very, very costly endeavor. Your help is greatly appreciated. We thank you for that. Also, EMP Shield. I am definitely in full swing working on the documentary that we filmed with these guys. So I'm hoping to have that up maybe as early as tomorrow night. But just want to remind you, especially with all this talk of war and everything that's going on and how crazy the situation in Israel is getting right now, I couldn't begin to tell you how important it is right now for an EMP Shield. They have bundles as well, and anytime you do any of these things, if you were to do an EMP Shield bundle and you added all this to your cart, etc., the one thing you do not want to forget is applying that INL 50 code in there. Apply that coupon. Every one of those, they're going to take $50 off for you. And as well, your purchase goes also to helping us. They removed $200 just from that for having that code there. So it brought your total down to $13.56. That's if you're buying this whole bundle of EMP Shields there for your home generator. And you don't have to buy a bundle. You might just want it for your vehicle, which I always encourage people. Definitely get one for your car. They got it for cars, motorcycles, whatever the case may be. Consider that. Check that out. IsraeliNewsLive.org, by the way, our website. You can donate there online. And also, if you're over on iConnect, a lot of people have figured out we have a donate button right under there on iConnect. If you're watching like this video here, Voices Israel Wants to Silence, it's on iConnect. You definitely want to see that video. But iConnect makes it super easy to donate on their page there, so we appreciate them making that available to you. And I do see where you guys are contributing there, and it is greatly appreciated, more than I could ever tell you. So thank you. Thank you for joining in here live tonight. Like I said, definitely go look at that video there. Voices Israel Wants to Silence. Also, too, on iConnect, let me just want to share something with you guys real quick about iConnect. This platform really has a lot of good features. I have talked to some of the managers there about the situation with what do you call it there, with the cookies that so many people have been bothered by. They are working on that. Another feature too, if you notice this one here, red alert whistleblower exposes details. I don't know about this here, but if you did a live broadcast on iConnect, they have that incognito feature, just like what you see right there in that video there. That's on Faith and Truth. That's Elizabeth's channel. Very good channel. You might want to subscribe to it when you're over there. But that's another amazing thing to where you can see the person moving around, but you don't see them. So it's really a very good resource to use there. And then two, the other thing that I really like, that's what I wanted to share with you guys real quick, is that one of the things that they have is they have their own way of counting the views. What you normally see, like here, Voices Israel Wants to Silence has got 8,726 views. That's the way it's shown in YouTube because it's linked to YouTube. But they actually have in their program here their own. If you go to this little world counting, that may have not have posted it as of yet, but we'll try it and see. Normally after a couple of days, it'll post the real views. Now that one's not done yet, but I'm going to show you an example here real quick because I know that there is one. Like I said, it normally takes a couple of days for it to process all of that. The video I did here about the pastors fall for this globalist agenda, we have 16,000 views on that video based on what YouTube is telling you. But when you go over here and you click on that little world and you look in here, now it's going to tell you where all the listeners are and just how many views you really have. In the United States, we have 62,000 views in the U.S. alone. 62,000. Not 16. We have in Canada 17,000 plus views. We have in Brazil 52 views, Australia 362, Russia only 6, Russia pretty close country. Another one that's a surprise for us is Pakistan, over 12,000 views in Pakistan. You get over here to Germany, over 2,000 views. France 490, Great Britain over 4,000. The video has been watched over 100,000 times. I'm not even looking at all the other countries, where you have views. Some of them just little single views and things like that. But very interesting to see where people are watching from. Morocco, Nigeria, Ghana, Saudi Arabia, 2 people in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iran, 1 viewer in Iran, Italy, 9 out of Italy, etc. Just goes all over the place. I just kind of like that feature that they have on there. A lot of things that you can do on this platform is kind of interesting. But I just want to share some of that with you. And then, but again, reminding you that definitely EMP Shield, INL50, that code there, definitely get it for your car. I think, we really believe in this. I'm finishing up that video there. And then, of course, my father-in-law's website, justiceforstefansuto.org. Normally don't go into all this that long, but I just figured I'd share it with you while I'm live here. It's a little bit easier because I don't have to worry about editing after I'm done. So I figured I'd take that time to kind of share some of this with you now. And hopefully our website will stay up. We get attacked every time I go to tell them the truth about things. Next thing you know, they done took our website down again. So God bless you. This time I'm trusting God it'll stay up and we won't have any problems whatsoever. Thank you and good evening. I got to remember how to turn